Has the Pope been misunderstood, or has it been understood correctly? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England, and on this channel I comment on current Christian news from a point of view as a priest. And today I'm going to be commenting on what's happening in the Catholic Church over their same-sex blessings and all the confusion that's come about from them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. We've just passed 10,000 subscribers. Let's keep that going up, because it's important to understand what's going on in the Christian world and how we respond to that. So on the 18th of December, the Dicastery of the Doctrine of Faith in the Roman Catholic Church, with the approval of the Pope, put out this document called Fiducia Supplicans, which talked about how to bless people in irregular situations, which obviously included same-sex couples. This got into the international news, with most of the headlines saying that the Pope approves same-sex blessings for couples. Which did it say that? Well, that's what a lot of people took from it. In this video, I'm going to go through a timeline of the headlines from Christian news to look what has been happening, because it has been all over the place. So back in December, I watched a video by Reason and Theology. It's an hour and a half long, but it was really helpful as they went through the document, through all the important parts, to see what it was saying. I put a link up here for you to watch it for yourself and come to your own conclusions. But if you don't want to watch it, here's a spoiler. It talks about giving people a blessing in an irregular situation, when people want to leave that life that they are living to go into a holier life, to come back to God, to come back to the way we are supposed to and called to live as Christians. And that's what it is talk about. It's that expectation that if you're a priest, that someone comes up to you and says, I live in the wrong way. I'm not happy with this. I want to come to faith, or come back to faith. And can you give me a blessing as I return? And that's, in a sense, what I took away. So with all that, though, there's been weeks of confusion on what is going on. I would always recommend to, when something like this comes out, no matter what document it is, and I do this myself, when a document comes out and I see the headlines, I go back to that document to read it for myself, to highlight it and go through it, and where it's a bit out of my understanding, like Catholicism, I go and find someone or a video which I find is quite authoritative on it and listen to them. But I would always check as well whether they are right. So always go back to the original source and see what it's truly saying, not just the headlines. There's too many people out there trying to get headlines, and this definitely did. So coming from the latest headline, before we start on the timeline, Premier Christianity says, Pope says same-sex declaration was misunderstood, defends the announcement. So the Pope is doubling down on what he's saying. He's saying this is, in a sense, going forward. And he says, sometimes decisions are not accepted, but in most cases, when decisions are not accepted, it's because they are not understood. The danger is that if I don't like something and I put it, the opposition, in my heart, I become a resistance and jump to ugly conclusions. This is what happened with these latest decisions on blessings for all. Now we'll see that many different countries have come out against this, and quite strongly. And these are big words in the sense by the Pope, because he's saying if you're against things already, then it's in your heart. So that's what you're going to see. That's why we have to come to these documents in a sense in an open mind, but knowing that we're going to bring our own ideas that we already have to it. And maybe this is where part of the struggle already is, but it could be how they communicate. Probably the biggest thing here is how the Pope has always been very open to LGBTQIA plus people and relationships. And so it feels like on one hand, he's saying one thing that is very open to that, and this document is saying something else. And these two don't quite go together. And that's where the confusion is coming from. Since the original declaration, the Vatican has put up pains to stress that the blessings did not amount to an approval of gay sex and should not be seen as anything remotely equivalent to the sacrament of marriage for heterosexual couples. So these are the two big things coming out that's saying it's blessing sin, and also you're treating it, or it can be misconstrued as looking like you're blessing gay relationships like we would do in heterosexual couples and their marriages. And maybe these prayers could be used in a way that become like a marriage ceremony. As I said, it got into the international news, but I look at the Christian news here. So from the Christian Today, it says Pope permits blessings for same-sex couples. Pope Francis has given his approval for priests to bless couples in irregular situations, including same-sex unions. The doctrinal declaration, Fiducia Supplicans, was issued by the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith on Monday and has the Pope's approval. The declaration gives the responsibility of blessing couples in irregular situations and same-sex couples without officially validating their status or changing in any way the Church's perennial teaching on marriage, the Vatican said. So this wasn't just for same-sex couples, but even though the headlines were talk about that, it was in people in irregular situations, such as maybe people who are living together, who outside of marriage, maybe people who are divorced are getting back together. That's an example they used later on. So people in a regular situation receiving a blessing. So on the 19th of December, the Church Times says, same-sex couples can be blessed, says the Vatican, but don't dress it up, it warns. So there's, in a sense, an understanding that there's a pushback already within a day. In the introduction of the declaration, the prefect of the DDF, Cardinal Victor Fernandez, explains that the declaration allows a broadening and enrichment of the classical understanding of blessings through theological reflection, based upon the pastoral vision of Pope Francis. So here you can already see some of the confusion, because they're talking about a broadening and enrichment of the classical understanding of blessings through the theological reflection based upon the pastoral provision by Pope Francis. So Pope Francis obviously is more liberal in his views. So with that theological reflection that he has and expanding what blessings are, it's kind of putting two and two together, creating, as I said, a lot of confusion. The document explores the pastoral meaning of blessings. It distinguishes between ritual and liturgical blessings and spontaneous ones, which it likens to signs of popular devotion. It declares that a request for a blessing by those who do not live according to the norms of Christian moral doctrine falls into the second category. So not living as a Christian, or even perhaps a Christian who is not living as a Christian should be living. The document reiterates it calls for the perennial Catholic doctrine. Only sexual relations between a man and a woman in the context of marriage are considered lawful. So the document does, and they keep going on. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Marriage is between a man and a woman. But at the same time, in the papers and what people are saying is, but you're blessing same-sex unions. And again, what's the word? Confusion. So as we move on in the timeline, Anglican Inc. says on the 19th of December as well, Vatican saying same-sex couples can be blessed. A key step forward, says Dignity USA. So now we're going to see two sides of the story, one saying this is great and the other side saying this is awful, both within days of each other. And again, it's like Pope Francis said, I suppose, it's what you bring to the table is how you will interpret it. So if on that article it says, Diddy Burke noted that this document is another step in a long journey to full equality and affirmation of same-sex relationships. So they see it from Dignity USA that this is a starting point. This is good. We're going forward. But then they also make it clear the sacramental recognition of same-sex relationships is not yet on the table. She said, however, the Pope has expressed full support of civil unions and legal protections for same-sex couples and our families. So in one way, she is saying that the recognition of same-sex relationships in the Catholic Church is not yet on the table, but this is a stepping stone for it to be, and for full equality and affirmation to one day come. Again, confusion. So what doesn't happen in all this? Issuing a document to give the guidance on what priests should do in these situations is within 3 days, people acting on it and it getting in the newspaper. So here's a picture of James Martin, who's a well-known liberal priest, blessing two people over their same-sex marriage. So this blessing is not blessing people who want to leave that lifestyle, but this is blessing people who want to continue that lifestyle. So who is wrong here? Is it him for interpreting wrong and bringing what he wants to it and saying, yes, this is absolutely great? Or is it the declaration which hasn't made it clear what they should do with the practical implications of this? So on the 21st of December, Christian Today had the headline, Catholic Archbishop admonishes Pope over same-sex blessings. A Catholic Archbishop in Kazakhstan reportedly issued a formal repudiation of the Vatican Doctrinal Office's guidance this week, allowing priests to offer blessings to same-sex couples. He accused the Catholic Church of propagating gender ideology. Such a blessing directly and seriously contradicts divine revelation and the uninterrupted bimillennial doctrine and practice of the Catholic Church. To bless couples in an irregular situation and same-sex couples is a serious abuse of the most holy name of God, since this name is invoked upon an objectively sinful union of adultery or of homosexual activity. So you can see that this is the absolute opposite from the previous article, where this primate says that these blessings are very serious and they contradict divine revelation, and you're invoking the most holy name of God into something which is not of God. But in Christian Today, they did an article in between these two other articles saying 5 things the Catholic Church document on same-sex blessings does and does not say. And this article is just showing the confusion that is out there. So they say the 5 things are: the doctrine of marriage and homosexuality has not changed. Same-sex blessings must not be ritualized. That's have a ceremony. Blessings are not to be part of a civil union. Keep it simple, as mean keep it short. And priests may not recruit couples for a blessing. That means say, hey, come and have a blessing. It must just happen spontaneously. But this article coming out just a day after the guidance was put out shows what the confusion was right from the beginning. So Anglican Inc. produced an article saying Fiducia Supplicans was an exercise in smoke and mirrors where spin becomes substance and appearance reality. This is by Gavin Ashenden, who was Church of England but went over to the Catholic Church. And in it says, the situation created by Fiducia Supplicans is both more subtle and, in the eyes of critics, more insidious. The blessing is of a very particular and finesse kind. It blesses the two people as individuals, but not as a couple. And just stop it there. This is the confusion as well, because it was saying about couples, and now it's talking about individuals. It says, yet they are invited to present themselves as a couple. They ask this as a couple. They arrive as a couple. They leave as a couple. They appear to be blessed as a couple, and yet very clearly, Fiducia Supplicans states that they are not being blessed as a couple. Their disordered union has not been blessed. How could it be without changing church teaching? He's just pulling out just one thing that is very confusing in this document. And he goes on to say in this article, with 2 critics of it from Eric Sammons, the most insidious aspect of modern heresy is that it loudly proclaims itself to be orthodox, but it divorces orthodoxy from orthopraxy, proper actions. So while Fernandez affirms the Church's doctrine on this point remains firm, the reality is that blessing sinful romantic relationships undermines the very doctrine. And Father Thomas Wynandy says, to bless couples in irregular marriages or same-sex couples without giving the impression that the Church is not validating their sexual activity is a charade. All those present at such blessings know, without a doubt, that such relationships are sexual in nature. No one is fooled. Actually, they are rejoicing that sexual relations are being blessed. That's the point of these blessings. It is not their sexual abstinence being blessed, but their sexual indulgence. So 2 very, very strong statements there against these blessings. And so what we see because of this, and in Anglican Inc. they say, there was a press release concerning the reception of Fiducia Supplicans. They had to put out another document. So this document, I think, was 8 pages long. And they put out another 5-page document to clear up some of the things that people were saying. And in this article it says, we are writing this press release to help clarify the reception of Fiducia Supplicans. while recommending at the same time a full and calm reading of the declaration so as to better understand its meaning and purpose. One thing pulling out here which helps with this, what they're trying to do and help with the confusion, is this in number 5. How do these pastoral blessings present themselves in concrete terms? This is really on the ground. To be clearly distinguished from liturgical or ritualized blessings, pastoral blessings, they're being called now, must above all be very short. These blessings last in a few seconds, without an approved ritual and without a book of blessings. If two people approach together to seek the blessing, one simply asks the Lord for peace, health, and other good things for these two people who request it. At the same time, one asks that they may live the gospel of Christ in full fidelity, and so that the Holy Spirit can free these two people from everything that does not correspond to his divine will and from everything that requires purification. So as I said, this in a sense helps clear things up about them coming to receive a blessing and going away to live that full life in Christ. There's no ritualization in there. There's no book. It should be a very short, less than 15 seconds. But it's one of the things that it really has been difficult for people is the fact that they can see or they believe that they are blessing unions that should not have been blessed in the first place. So let's come into line with the most recent article. Vatican says gay blessings can only last 15 seconds following global leaders' protests. There's so much pushback, and this is referring back to this 5-page statement where it says the Vatican has moved to ease the backlash following its decision to permit priests to bless gay couples. The clarification specifies that such blessings should be brief, lasting no more than 15 seconds, and should not be misconstrued as legitimizing homosexual relationships. The clarification stressed that allowing priests to perform such blessings is neither heretical or contradictory to the Church's traditions. It's going to be very hard for them to take these two opposing views, as it were, and these two beliefs that the Catholic Church and the Pope is speaking about, and to make it cohesive and understandable. Because if you're saying one thing for so long and now you're issuing this document and it seems like they're different, but they're saying that they're the same, there's going to be a lot of confusion. The Vatican's reiteration attempts to assert that these blessings should not be perceived as justifications for individuals' actions or endorsements of their lifestyle, maintaining a delicate balance between pastoral outreach and adherence to traditional doctrine. So the Pope of the Catholic Church on one hand they talk about pastoral outreach and helping people to come back to Christ and live a holy life, but you've also got the traditional doctrine of the church, and sometimes these just don't go together. But with the Catholic Church being so big and diverse across so many different countries, the Pope speaking one language, the Church speaking another language, and then trying to bring them together, will it ever work?